So I think we were talking about the roots of lifting and exercise, and it's come from people just experimenting in their garage. And some of the big names, Franco Columbu and Arnold and all the powerlifters, powerlifting wasn't a sport until about the 50s. And that squat, bench, and deadlift, they were just workout ideas. They were not official anything. Olympic lifting was the big official sport recognized in the Olympics. Yeah, but powerlifting was just working out in the garage.
Yeah.
This thing called squat, and people had horrific form, and they'd have accidents and tear out their knees. Hence the saying, squats are bad for your knees. Well, they are. If you pitch your knee way over your toe and do a narrow stance and fold all up, you bet. But then back then, people just sort of knew, this thing called squat and pulling heavy things off the floor. They just innately felt, and until research caught up and supported all of these outstanding movements, then we've got something. And so you can tell I'm very research scientific based.
Mm-hmm.
I like to hear people go, well, I think you should try bee pollen for a headache. There's no scientific research that supports that. Let me see the science. So I think science has always been a bit late in this exercise lifting thing. And now that it's caught up, there's some unbelievable things that support, they were right to do such and such back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yeah, here it is.
Yeah.
You take for the most powerful single rep movement, you should use a wider grip in the bench press. Because it cuts down the length of the stroke between your chest when you lock it out. But everybody sort of knew that. I'm going to try wide grip bench presses today. Okay. Well, science now supports that. That's how you get one. It's not how you may become the most muscular bodybuilder. So there are other things. But it's taken a good 20 years for there to be significant research articles and scientific that supports all the things we know and we knew.
Yeah, that's a very interesting phenomenon. And like one of my friends that I had on the podcast, his name's Danny. He actually has this little series and show that he's doing online. And broadly, it's called the Research and Review, where he goes through relevant, research and dissects it, explains it in layperson terms. But he also has a podcast called the Anecdote Hour, just because the two are so, closely related. And I think that's a great format, and he's killing it. So it's like you said, very true.
Right. And yet we don't want to quell anybody's enthusiasm for trying out new things in the weight room or on the track and field. You can't, without having any science, you can't just say, no, science doesn't support that. So I don't want you to do that movement, that workout. Just try it. My goodness, try these bizarre things.
Yeah.
There was a 400-meter specialist, last name Kennedy, here in Columbus, Ohio, years ago when he was training for the Olympics, or at least the trials. It was just a famous story that he got out on one of the tracks here in Columbus and did 20 repeats, 20 of the 400 meters, 20 times. I mean, that was just crazy. And you just go that, Robert, there's just no scientific support for that. We haven't seen that done. He goes, well, I'm doing it. Well, he turned out to be a hell of a 400-meter runner, but that was an extreme example. And then of course now there's science. There's been a lot of studies on that. That was maybe 20 years ago. But you don't want to kill anybody's enthusiasm for trying new things. You don't have to say, well, wait until the science supports it. Look at Louie Simmons. He didn't wait for anything. We're trying this.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the pioneers for all the methods he came up with. Yeah.
He was fun.
Oh, yeah.
If you ever want some fun stories, we can go down that road too.
Oh, I'd love to. So what I'm thinking now is I'll do my little intro for the audio version and do the background, and then we'll get into the fun stories and all your areas of expertise. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of The Trainer Scoop, a podcast dedicated to individuals passionate about fitness to help them improve in life and lifting. Today, I am very, very excited to bring to you Dr. Mariah Liggett, I should say. And the reason why I'm so excited, a couple of episodes, I jokingly said that I have a world record holder. And Bryce, while he has RDL'd like 700 pounds, I don't know if we could really count that, but in fact, today, Dr. Mariah Liggett actually do you currently hold a world record, Mariah, or has it since been broken?
It has, yes.
Okay.
Finally, after 20 years, it held, and I'm very proud that another female has taken over that deadlift world record.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A 20-year world record holder, though. I think that's definitely a first for this podcast. and there's much more to Mariah than that. Just to quickly go over some of her accolades. Mariah Liggett has a doctorate in exercise physiology, and also we consider it a doctorate in the sport of powerlifting. So a 30-year veteran in the sport, like we said, world record holder at one point with, just a very impressive total as well, with a squat of over 500, bench press of over 300, and deadlift just under 500 pounds, all under the body weight of 150. So think about that, and that's very, very impressive. But she's done much more, like I said, than just competitive powerlifting. The doctorate in exercise physiology, and that was from Ohio State University, correct, Mariah?
That's right. Doctorate from Ohio State and undergrad from Slippery Rock.
Very cool. And you were a varsity athlete at one point too, correct?
Yes, I ran varsity cross country and track at Slippery Rock, which of course has nothing to do with powerlifting. They were quite the extremes.
Quite a transition you made there. Yeah. But in addition to those impressive things on the resume, Mariah also has invented a newer strength sport, one that I've helped out with in the past at the Arnold Sports Festival, and it's called Power X. So that's more of a combination of like strength and then like muscular endurance. Would you say that's correct, Mariah?
Yes, and the ATP systems and the energy systems, that's that 3-minute mark, and that's where we're zooming in on that. It's certainly not the under 10 seconds like a shot put throw or burst, like powerlifting and shot put. This is the next one where it's still a strength sport. Anything under 1 to 3 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Right. So definitely getting into that glycolytic pathway there. But do you want to talk a little bit about what Power X is and kind of how you came up with the different lifts included and the rule structuring as well?
Sure. This came out of my years of powerlifting, which I love powerlifting, and I realized that not everybody can powerlift or they don't want to. How many people are intimidated by a 1-rep max? They are. Now, you and I might love powerlifting. A lot of people do, but people just can't or don't want to. And so it was kind of a turnoff. And I looked for many years, why don't more people do powerlifting? Well, they can't, or they don't want to, or they tend for many, many reasons. And so I came up with the other sport here called Power X, and the X stands for multiplication. But it's a simple sport, 20 reps or 3 minutes, whichever comes first. And David, have you ever seen anybody do 20 reps in anything with 500 pounds? Have you seen that before?
Only in Power X. I can honestly say that. Right.
And so I invented this thing, and I had no idea that there are people out there that can do that. And when I talked to Mike Brown, who did 6'10" for 12 reps, I go, Mike, you had a powerlifting career. Why are you cutting over from powerlifting to Power X? He goes, I can't, I just can't do the 1-rep max anymore. I'm like, bingo. And I feel good about what I invented. They just can't, or they don't want to anymore. Or you talk to some of the newbies this was their entrance into sports and strength training. They didn't have another sport, and they go, I think I'll just tiptoe around. I can do 10 reps in the bench. Maybe I can do 20, or maybe how long can I last in the bench? So I'm really glad I invented an alternative to my favorite sport, powerlifting. It just has to be. People want something different. Yeah. And it's a pretty exciting show. It's a pretty exciting thing when Arnold Schwarzenegger takes the microphone and counts out your reps while you're lifting the deadlift. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. So it was also invented for a little crowd pleaser. People are out screaming, come on, get another one, 6, 7. So there's a bit of marketing behind the sport too.
Right.
And then the other reason is people can't always do every powerlifting lift. They just can't, okay? And if you realize how exciting yet dangerous that squat is, forcing somebody to do reps in the squat's probably not the smartest thing. You'll see. Nor how do you judge? The squat is the most controversial judging lift in that sport, darn it.
Mm-hmm.
How deep did they go? And is it safe? I didn't see. Well, the front judge said it was low enough to do so. Nightmare. So I did not go forward with that. And I thought, well, how do you work your hips and legs in a squatting motion without squatting? You know where it is. It's in that hex bar or trap bar deadlift. So I substituted the squat with that hex bar. And PowerX is the only sport that competitively uses that trap bar or hex bar, however you want to say it. Mm-hmm. And it's a leg and hip exercise, of course, lower back. So that turned out to be a good addition to it. So it's the hex bar deadlift, the traditional bench press, and the power clean. I realized a lot of people, and you, David, probably had in high school, if you played on some sports team, these coaches made you do a power clean. Mm-hmm. And that's a sort of a technical thing. That's the most high technique in it. And it was also a ploy to get some people that are in CrossFit who do the, power clean and some Olympic lifters. So combine 3 different movements, you add them up just like in powerlifting, get a total score, and it's fairly simple. But you know what? It goes a heck of a lot faster than an 8-hour powerlifting day. I love powerlifting there, but there are so many things that are just difficult operationally with it. Mm-hmm. Like the time, the safety of judges. I've been an international powerlifting referee for years. I've hosted powerlifting meets for years, and I just got such a taste of it. I thought there's got to be other ways people can love to be lifting. And so that's where that came from.
Yeah. We've talked about it so much over the years, but I really think it is cool that you were able to kind of like have that maturity to depart from the sport that you invested so much of your life and you had so many major accomplishments in, to like just be able to share lifting with more people. I found that really cool, actually, and I've never really had that realization, but that's cool to hear.
Thank you. And thank you for saying it that way, because that's true, and that's how I feel. I want it to be shared, and when you realize your favorite thing can't be shared, you've got to keep trying. Really believe people need to be in the weight room and stay in the weight room well into however old they are. They just have to, and I advise many of my clients and coach people, you need to be done with long distance running at about age 30, 35. That's too much. But you know what? You need to be in the weight room well into the rest of your life. These are non-impactive. These are load-bearing for 100,000 reasons. People need to be in the weight room. And so if I have to invent another sport, okay. If they can't power lift, if they're retiring, okay, we'll find something.
Most definitely. Yeah, I think with all those great accomplishments noted, I think to kind of provide a little bit more personal connection between Mariah and I, it's very funny that I was able to, meet you and then learn from you as much as I did, because I had this, in Columbus, Ohio, of course, it's like a mecca of strength. There's so many good resources. But little did I know, when I stayed in Columbus this summer after my sophomore year of undergrad, my mom let me know that her good friend Mariah is in Grove City, super close to where I was staying. And I was like, okay, looked up some records, and I was like, wow, that's she's very, very strong. And man, I would just have never imagined that my mom, we love you, Jane, had such a cool connection for me, because she's very, very musically inclined, but I don't think I could say she's the most weight room inclined by any means. And I just thought that it was so cool that, you guys grew up together and were friends. And then I was able to continue that kind of friendship and learn from you and just be around you and all the cool people over at Power Max and Lexington. So it's been really cool. And I feel lucky to be able to have learned and done so much with you, Mariah. So thank you for all that.
Well, you're welcome. And in the world of weights, one person, one lifter, and one friend, and one gym, and one pal leads to about 10 more. It's, as I said, multiplicative. It's not just one. After you came bouncing into the gym down in Grove City, then it just led to more and more. It's not a one-on-one friendship thing. These are teams. And I know powerlifting and weightlifting is an individual sport, as they would teach you in school. It's just not. I know there's one performer on the stage, but wow, it's a team effort. And that's when it's really fun. And that's when it's a great, once you do your lift and you deeply understand it, then when you're watching other people lift, you are so in their shoes, literally. Or you could be spotting them so close so you can hear them breathing, feel them sweating, like, yeah, I'm with this person. I will not let them crash and burn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The whole friendship circle. And that's why we all stay in this sport. It's a huge circle of camaraderie. It's a lot of things going on. Yeah.
That's one thing that I was really impressed by over, like, especially at Lexington, because in more modern, times, the training group has actually kind of diminished, like that idea of having a group of people. A lot of people are just in the gym with their headphones on, doing their own thing.
Yes.
But it was definitely educational for me to see that and understand how important it is to have that cohesive group. And it's something that I'm still looking for out here in New Jersey since I've moved, but I know when I find it, it'll be a definite benefit for me.
Well, I think once people realize you can't do a max squat, a max bench, a max deadlift, a max anything by yourself with headphones on, you just go, oh, I need some friends. I better get some spotters, and then they become your friends, and vice versa. I've seen people trying to do that, crash and burn, prevent a bunch of accidents, to go, hey, dude, now come on, get over here. We meet on Saturday mornings, and we'll help. But you just injured your shoulder because you lifted out a heavy bench to yourself. Oh, that was dumb.
Yeah.
Get in a group, and then maybe you're going to improve and not injure yourself. I mean, there's just 100 reasons it works with small group training.
Oh, it's important stuff.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, we briefly hit on the fact that you ran cross country for your undergrad, but how did you initially become passionate about like a fit and active lifestyle? And then how did that transition into more so powerlifting?
Yeah, it's the traditional way most everybody did. I was a phys ed major and English minor at Slippery Rock, and it is a state teacher school, and they just beat it into your heads about teaching and coaching. So I also have a coaching sort of degree in 5 different sports, but it was an excellent educational foundation. And so I ran cross country, and the cross country, because I came from Ohio, flat Ohio, cross country coach goes, hey, you're not really good at running up the hills here in Pennsylvania. Can you go over to the weight room and see this guy and get a little stronger because you're not very good? So we went over to the weight room, and Gary goes, well, yeah, you're going to have to not only get in shape, but your legs are too skinny. Let's go. Okay, Jesus. So we would do squats and machine lifts and so on. And of course, the story goes, yes, I got stronger and better, became a pretty good runner. And then one day that weight room guy goes, hey, when you're done running cross country, we need somebody on the powerlifting team to just fill in the 123-pound weight class. Do you weigh about that? And I said, yeah. And I go, well, what do you do? He goes, you know what? The state championships are next week. I'm just going to real quickly show you. I'm just going to show you. There's this thing called squat, and then there's a bench, and then there's a deadlift. I'm like, Jesus. And he goes, look, we just need to fill in. If you can get 1 point or 5, that's fine. Just take over. It's a combined men-women's team. I'm like, oh, okay. Oh my God, it was fast track, squat, bench, deadlift for about a week. And of course, I was not very strong. I just came off cross country. Good Lord. We go there, and I did place, absolutely 5th place. I got 1 point for the team in the 123s. And I just stank. I mean, I think my bench was something ridiculous, like 115. I didn't even bench body weight. But I kind of like the deadlift. Now that one came around. I have a picture of me at that meet. I'm wearing green shoes, school colors, I guess.
Hmm.
People green shoes to deadlift 225. And it was easy. And I thought, oh, I kind of like this one. And I'm telling you, within 6 months, I owned a world record in the deadlift at 300, weighing 123. It just, so I thought, what am I doing running cross country distance? I'm going to stay over here.
Yeah.
So I just jumped the fence and went that way. And then the other thing is you can't run once school stuff is over and your school sports are over. It's like, oh, the team's gone. What am I doing? And I saw this as a definite way to keep going, competing and find a whole new circle of friends after graduation. So
Yeah.
I quickly on knew that I shouldn't have been in distance things. In fact, I remember in track practice, when it came to doing 100-meter repeats, I just beat everybody's butt. I'm like, well, there's another sign. Maybe I'm not a distance person. So, yeah. But the bench press, like for most people, not just girls or men, the bench press takes the longest to improve, and it sure as heck did. And I remember Louie Simmon saying it takes a very long time to be a good bench presser, and it takes a hell of a long time to be a great bench presser, and it takes an even longer time to be a world record holder and to bench 2 times body weight. So that bench press is always going to be. And so you got to give everybody a break when you're coaching or teaching. They're not going to be great benchers. People aren't like that deadlift I just set a world record in very quickly. That's you see that more than you do anything in the bench press.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you sometimes see people that have a wrestling background. They can come into the bench press, be decent at it. But I'm always making sure people understand. Be patient on that particular lift.
Yeah, it's something I have to be patient on because my bench still isn't quite there yet. But that's an interesting thought
Dave,
about wrestling.
Dave, that's because David, you have arms that are 6 feet long each. So
I'm working on
disadvantage here. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing is people's body types. I mean, I'm definitely made for this sport of powerlifting. I always was. Thanks to my genetics, thanks mom and dad. But and you've got this 9-foot tall frame, and I would just go, what you're getting into, Dave.
Yeah.
No, that's not to say you could be a great deadlifter, which I've seen some of your deadlift workouts. And so that's me giving you a sample of coaching and how we would approach someone in lifting.
Mm-hmm. So one thing Mariah quickly mentioned is working with Louie Simmons, and if you've ever seen that documentary that was pretty popular about a year ago, Westside versus the World, Mariah gets a quick little snippet in there, and it's only like 5 to 10 seconds. So I was a little disappointed. I wish they would have given the girls of Westside back in the day their due, but hey, maybe that'll happen later on down the road. But yeah, you were kind of one of the original trainees at Westside Barbell. You want to talk about that a little bit?
It was not called Westside Barbell. It was called Louie Simmons' Backyard Garage. It truly was. He just converted an old garage, never put any cars in it. They just lived on the west side of Columbus. So he didn't have a name, and it was just, people, the guys squat on Friday night, and then he slowly started to make a girls group because his wife, Doris, wanted to lift too. She'd always watch the guys and Louie lift. And it's like, oh, me too. And then I came off of powerlifting out at Slippery Rock back into Columbus to go to grad school. And so we started this collection of girls. And it was hilarious. He just had this trashy garage on the west side. 2 or 3 times it caught on fire because he heated it in the wintertime with one of those gas, kerosene-filled heaters. It was hilarious trying to put that fire out. But it was some of the most extreme training, but it made everybody tougher. In the winter, the snow would blow under the garage door. Your feet would just be like clubs clomping around its concrete floor. The dog, that dog that would just walk right under your squat or deadlift bar, and he would scream at you, just go, hold still while the dog, but it's okay. It was just hilarious things, extreme, but it was never called Westside Barbell. It just wasn't. It was the roots of, like you said, how it started. And that's when Louie was a competitive lifter. And we would all train as a group, different guys, girls group, and go to different meets. And I remember Louie's competitive, that couple of years there for a minute, he bombed out in 9 meets in a row. and we would get, we'd all go as a group. I know. You have about 9 meets in a row, and we would just go. It'd be different reasons, squat or this or the bench, and it was incredible. And then I remember his wife and some of the lifters, we were going home after bomb out number 9. Louie wasn't around, and we go, "What is going on?" And I forget who it was. Like, I forget one of the guys. They go, "You know what? It doesn't matter. What he's shown us is he just loves to lift. It doesn't matter whether he got first place or set a record. He has been in 9 meets." And we'd go, yeah. And there were he was fine. We were teasing and joking in the warm-up rooms. It's fine. And I'm telling you, it's one of the best lessons, whether he meant to teach it or not. But who would stay with the sport if you bombed out? He did. And it was a great lesson. And he was always funny and witty. And, that was a big part of it. And we just trained in that trashy garage. And then eventually, his group, the men's group, got a little bigger, and he leased a space out also on the west side of Columbus, and put some things, just moved it out of the trashy garage and just got bigger, got a couple more squat racks. And at that point, he named it Westside. And I don't know if most people know, but he always fancied this guy in California, and his name was Peanuts West. And Louie showed us this black and white picture of this dude out in California that he really liked and read stories about, and because this guy is really strong, and he made this. Louie would just show us these pictures of him lifting. It was a good power lift. You could look up his name. And so finally he goes, well, I'm just gonna, since I live on the west side of Columbus and I love this guy Peanuts West, I'm naming it the Westside Barbell Club, because Peanuts West. And so that's where that comes from. I don't know if people realize that, but it's a nod to the West Coast lifters and power lifters out there.
Yeah, I think in the documentary, from what I remember, I watched it a couple of times. They said like Louie was in the service, correct?
Oh yeah, there's another story. He was drafted during the Vietnam War, but never saw action. They positioned him in Germany or something. And
and that's when like he was thinking about like the lifting, and he saw that guy. But I never knew like the connection of like, oh, he's like, well, that's why I call it Westside. So that's cool to hear some of the history.
Deliberately after someone on the West Coast whose last name was West, Peanuts West. So, but it just sits on the trashy west side of Columbus, Ohio, anyway. So,
yeah, it's true.
And he's moved it around over the years. It's still there. It's off near, the west side of Columbus, near kind of where I live. So, different lifters, he's got a manager and some different people that run it now. So, but it started in the garage, like many, many, many people lift in.
Yeah. Fun little side note for you, Mariah. I don't remember if, actually, I do think you met one of my friends that came to Power Max years ago. His name was Ryan. He's like a super tall guy. He has like a man bun. He's actually doing some of the website redesign. So he's been on some calls with Louie. I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. Yeah. They're like revamping everything. So it's come a long way since that time.
It has, and it's been very interesting for me to look at that and go, that just exploded from nothing. And Louie, as everybody, it's just a well-known fact, Louie himself is pretty much of a wacko, and it just doesn't matter. I could tell you hilarious stories. I was there in the garage when he invented the reverse hyper. Hilarious stories, and we ended up going to the emergency room because everybody got beat up, knocked over things. Yeah. Yeah, and I just look back and go, he commandeered a cult and developed a cult. And that's the best description I can tell you, because he is like a guru of a cult. And it's a bizarre sport that nobody makes any money in. And they're just crazy lifts that people lift insane weights. And it's just an absolute broad-based cult that when you join, you get that bug in it, you're part of it. And it's been interesting to go, okay, if people knew how nasty and trashy that west side, you would just go, no, I'm not going in with, no, it's horrible. People just, back then, even in the garage, you would just blow your nose, blow the blood out of your nose, out of the ground, never even wash it up, just walk it and just keep going. Okay, let's go lift again. It was just, or the thing burned down 2 or 3 times and we caught it on, it's just not anything attractive. I'm telling you, when young kids' parents would come by, they'd go, no, you're not.
That's so
Or even
funny.
at powerlifting meets, you just see people just go, no, not this sport. This is, and then there's just people should never wonder why powerlifting is not in the Olympics. Really? You want to take on that whole culture and that whole cult? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not ever going to be in the Olympics. And why would I always thought I love the Olympics, and so do you. But to win a world championship or have world championships every year, that's the showcase of the best at the world championships. Every 4 years, you get to only sample who's best right then. The Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
not that impressive, but you have a world championship in powerlifting, then that's the best. I always just favored that concept over, I wish it were in the Olympics. No, you don't, and it's not going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you bring up a cool point about how some of the things that, Westside is so popular for, some of those training methods, like the reverse hyper, the belt squat, or like the athletic platform, those were kind of being developed. And I'm not sure if the timeline's exactly lined up to when you trained in the garage.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly. It was exactly then. I was in Louie's garage, and he acquired a gymnastics horse. If you know what that is, it's a leather horse. And he shows up, and we're all kind of getting ready for work. And he goes, "Hey, I have this idea. Get your lower back. You know that swimmer's thing where the swimmer flips it's the dolphin kick." Is what he meant. You know what the dolphin kick is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was trying to describe that. He goes, "We got to do that with weights. We got to do that with weights." We go, "Okay." He goes, "It's like this. You just get over this horse because it's padded, and then you just put weights on your feet and swing it up and swing it up." And so we, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's very creative. He just studies things like that and then comes up with. So we're in the garage. His wife Doris is there, and a couple of us lifters. He goes, "We got to figure out a way how to load the lower body as in the ankles and the feet, yet not get whipped underneath like George Jetson on the treadmill." Right. So it just took days and days. But by God, some of the accidents. But at the end, he came up with a free weight version of it. Leather belt, weight plate, 25-pound weight plates strapped in and around your ankle. Mm-hmm. And of course, you would just cut the medial malleolus. It's just bloodied up your ankles until us girls go, "Louie, we're putting pads, we're putting T-shirts and pads around our ankles. We don't want to cut our legs." Anyway, so then you would lift up the weight and you would hang on. You've got to hang on out front, and then you just swing it up with a straight leg swing, like you look like you're doing the dolphin kick, swimming. But you know what, David? You can't patent that. You can't sell that. How would you sell somebody? I got my own 25-pound plates. I got my own belt. I can throw myself over the kitchen counter. There's, how do you monetize that? Can't. Then years later, he and Tim Van Horn invented the machine version, which is popular now.
Okay.
And you can sell that. And there's this, right. But I still think he then made a critical error between the difference in free weights and machine weights. You can get that pendulum on his machine to swing, and I can push 600 pounds back and forth. It's a machine, it's not you lifting. So it's not load bearing.
Yeah.
I still coach all my lifters the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
Strap a handful of 25 between your ankles, jump up, swing that, hang on out front, and swing the weights in the back. There's no substitute for free weights, but I understand he had to be able to sell something.
Right.
So that's the history of it. I'm telling you that we went to the emergency room on day one. So here's Louie, gets up over that horse. He's got probably 100 pounds in 25-pound weights strapped to his ankles. He gets up over the horse, and we didn't know how to hold on. We're you just get flung down. So he goes, "Okay, girls, hold me, hand me 100-pound dumbbells in each hand out front." And then that way, yes, it was a trip to the emergency room with Louie's wife, freaking out. Had to have stitches in his legs, and it was really dangerous. And then he goes, "No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work." So then you have to affix something out front to hang on to, like a simple barbell. then it's sort of a lat stretch in the leg.
Yeah.
And the most I'm telling you, I credit that exercise with all of my posterior chain strength for my deadlift world records and squat. You betcha, there's no substitute for that. And I'm sorry that people think that machine today is the way to do it. No, it's not. Not even close.
Yeah.
Not now, but that's where that came from. So yes, I was there on Invention Day, and I was at the ER on the Invention Day as well.
That's a great story.
Well, he was trying to get the concept, and my God, it was a bad accident.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Hilarious.
Hey, you got to take one for the strength sports team, I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
He did. And belt squats. Now, belt squats, I was there for too. So many accidents with that.
Really?
So many. Yeah, oh God, belt squats. Free swinging, dangling heavy weights, between your legs. So he just commandeered, he just put planks, wood. Okay, you know what's going to happen there. 2 planks of wood where you would step up on, so you're higher up on the floor.
How thick were these planks of wood?
Not enough.
Oh, no.
But they are at the first. You go, okay, this is working. Okay, so he'd get a tricep dip belt chain. Yeah, you just get one of those. All right. Step up get up to about 4 feet taller than the ground, standing on planks. But then there's a big hole or space. Your right and left leg are on something, and you've got a space down below. So then down below on the floor, you get a couple 45s, run that chain, the belt chain, and stand up. And then the greatest point about this exercise, that is free springing weight. It's a hip lift, and it commands a lot of coordination. It's not machine. It's an excellent exercise. So then you can get very strong because it's a hip lift.
Yeah.
And that weight's dangling. So, of course, Louie wanted to see his max, and he strung up 100-pound plates. Then he started getting stronger. Well, the first thing that happened was that silly tricep dip chain broke and snapped out. And, of course, the chain snapped somebody's eye, and that was a big accident. So then he went over to the hardware store and got a massive chain, and we made a nice belt squat chain, and then you can handle 100-pound plates. Yeah, then he forgot to get heavier duty boards, so of course he crashed through those, and that was a big accident. Oh yeah, finally, there's a way to rig it up in a walk-in rack where you can step up and you can hold on to the 4 pillars of the rack like a sissy squat. So yeah, that took several accidents, but that's still one of the greatest one. And now you see he's invented a cable version of that. Same chief difference is that's not free weights. Takes no athleticism, and it's so you're not loaded. You're not loaded, and you can, but again, it's the same thing. How would you monetize something, with the free weight swinging belt chain? Yeah, just people make stuff up in their garage all the time, but you can now sell this machine that's a cable loaded and plate loaded.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on with that. That's excellent exercise.
Oh, definitely. That's very interesting. And just from my experience, like when I was training at Iron Sport Gym, I threw belt squats in for a mesocycle because they had like a Elite FTS super nice belt squat. But like you said, it was cable loaded. And I just really, didn't feel.
It's a belt. We should say it's a belt cable squat.
Yeah.
It's not free weight. So I challenge everybody. Rig up the old-fashioned way. You can do it in a walk-in rack and just put some, step taller. And see how good you are at free swinging weights, and squat it up and down with a hip squat. And again, it's never meant to be a deep squat like below parallel. It's almost like a deadlift depth. But it's, Now I remember getting up. I got it. All of us girls, Lord Odd and I got up to very heavy weights. I belt squatted 400 pounds, free weight 400. For reps, and I'm telling you that makes you very strong in any hip lift. Yeah, but now this cable machine is, it's not really a source of loaded body strength, but it's something you can easily sell and fit into a commercial gym.
Right. There's at the gym that I go to really close to where I live right now. It's called Full Depth. They have this variation, and I think it's almost like a happy medium. Maybe not quite as effective as the free weights, but definitely I feel it much better than like a cable belt squat. It's called a squat max, I believe. And it's really bizarre. it hooks onto really anything. And so he has it hooked onto like a very heavy duty ab machine. It's just what made sense for him. And it's very secure. And it's a platform. It has a huge pole that, of course, you can drop weight down into. And then you load the 45-pound plates on the pole. Yep. And then you hook the belt in.
Yeah.
And so it's not quite as, well, I guess it doesn't demand quite as much coordination as a like purely free weight, but it provides you like a plane of motion.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do like it.
That's getting there.
I've been working on that one lately.
Yeah, that's getting there.
It's interesting.
I think it amounts to just how much rigging up people want to do or not do. And of course, that's why machine weights are universally more popular in every weight room than barbells and so on. Yeah. I want to rig this, jimmy that around, get this horse. Yeah. Just get in a machine and do it.
Right.
So, that's the whole difference between free weights and machine weights. And you just have to make a choice. And they're both are excellent for what they're worth, but I think a mixture of both, of course, is best throughout your life. And you've got to pick some free weights and dumbbells mixed with some of the nicer machines. Hey, and the new hip thrust machine is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That gets over that old routine where you'd load up 1,000,000 pounds on a straight bar and put it on your waistline and then hip thrust it.
Oh, yeah. That one is very convenient.
Rigging. Just get all this done.
Yeah.
The new hip thrust machines are an excellent alternative, and it's fine for that to be a machine, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Fine for that. You've just got to get that posterior by hip thrust with heavy weight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great machine. Somebody invented that well.
Mm-hmm. So as we've talked about in the past, a lot of the training methodologies of Westside have come under criticism, partially for good reason. But what are your feelings toward, those things, maybe specifically the reverse hyper, the belt squat, and GPP as it pertains to the specificity of the big three? Right.
Now, remember what GPP stands for. Tell me.
General physical preparedness.
Okay. General physical preparedness. Prescribe who that would be best for in a general sense.
I wouldn't say necessarily powerlifting, just maybe like a soccer mom that could get in better shape.
Well, its validation truly comes through the military training. They have to be generally prepared for every crazy situation and extremely strong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely the roots of CrossFit. It's general preparation. It is to be ready for anything. And the downside is it's general preparation for no goal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest criticism of GPP. Now, powerlifting has specific goals, very, very goal-oriented. And you might, as you just said, a soccer mom, she might have some specific goals too. So the difference in GPP, okay, I'm going to be generally prepared for, I don't know what. I might get shot at. I might have to run across the street in front of the truck. I'm just generally ready. And then it goes on and on like that, and you lose people because it doesn't have an ending. It doesn't have a high point. They're just, I'm done. I know there's no numbers involved. I'm just, hey, you're in good shape. Okay. And I really think the biggest downside of GPP is that you've not baked in as a good coach or trainer, what's a goal? And it can't just be, okay, all right, Bob, in a week or two, you're going to be able to do 50 push-ups. No, I don't mean that kind of goal. Not at all. And I don't mean you lost 20 pounds. You're down by body fat. Those things do not have any staying power in health and exercise. Just don't. You've got to set something. You've got to set some kind of high-level life goal, then the medium-level lifting goal. You've got to set, as you said, mesocycle. You've got to set it, and GPP just falls short of that. And that's where I think coaching training just goes, why did I lose all these customers? You've not thought through. And then that's where people go, well, I want to join a sport. Okay, look at what they just told you. Here's a goal. Good. Yeah, so I think GPP has its place in many places. I think it has its form in terms of the deload or recovery cycle for powerlifters or any other athletes, but you cannot just run around and be goalless for your entire life going, well, I'm generally prepared. Okay. Not fun, not doing it all my life. You watch me leave. I'm leaving the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the traditional gym model is difficult to make money on. They just bank on people coming in January, February, March, because it's my New Year's resolution. Somebody gave me a fitness membership, and then what happens. And I think it's because they're generally in fitness shape. There is no seasonal. I love seasonal things.
Mm-hmm.
And so do you. Or students go to school in season. There's winter, spring, summer, and fall. Those are, I'm not saying it's a goal, but they are baked in things that come and go and come and go.
Mm-hmm.
You just ask somebody to hey, I'm just going to go work out. You watch them fall off. It doesn't happen. So you can use this GPP theory in its own right, and then that's about it. But you've got to then head over to sport specificity or goal specificity very quickly and year round and all the time. You can certainly change goals and sports. I mean, powerlifting, I think, can morph here and there throughout a 1-year cycle. I mean, once we get back on track after this COVID break we're on, I think it's normal for powerlifters to compete 1 to 3 times a year. Almost like when marathoners can only do it 1 to 3 times a year. It's like,
yeah.
But look at how that offers a season. There it is. It's almost 4 seasons. You can look at it that way. That offers, up and down times. That's a time, for the two months after my meet, I'm going to just do general physical fitness, GPP. But get rid of it. You're done. It doesn't last forever. And neither does powerlifting. Neither does powerlifting training.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once people realize, look what's out there, look at all the fun things I can be doing, the different sports, bike riding, if you bake it in, then that's fit for life. That's exercise. Then I love these things for my life. I'm burnt out. And then there's a whole topic of injuries. How do I get around that? Rest. I mean, yeah, so GPP has its place. And then goal specificity for every sport you're in is the trump card. It really should drive everything else first, and there's a trickle down.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. So I was I'm currently reading a book. It's called The Scientific Principles of Strength. And one of their criticisms, which I'm not sure if you encountered this much when you were lifting with that group, but they were talking about how, it was almost like a bragging point that like Westsiders wouldn't deadlift up until like the day of the meet almost. And it was like, well, you're losing on that technical practice. You might be developing just a massive amount of general strength, but that specific strength would be lacking. Did you ever encounter that? And I know you left training at Westside for obvious reasons, but I was just curious if you had saw that, and obviously there's flaws to that thinking, but.
Yeah, and that's just a general statement when it's just an overgeneralization, I should say, when somebody says that the West Side thinking was don't deadlift till the meet. Not true,
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't when I was there for many reasons. If you're not a beginner, and I was not, then you can afford to work the posterior chain, legs, hips, and back heavily and take a heavy deadlift workout here and there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth of what went on.
Yeah.
It is. Because sometimes people, and Louie, believe that the squat trains the deadlift and the deadlift trains the squat to some degree, but it is, just a hip and leg and back effort. So it's not like you're not training the deadlift. You really are. And if you're doing, as we said, those belt squats or cable squats or handle squats, that's still a deadlift form. And if you're hex bar deadlifting, that's still deadlifting. So I don't know that was an accurate description.
Okay.
And it was also reserved for non-beginners.
Mm-hmm.
No, if you just stepped into the powerlifting world and you're training for your first meet, you're going to deadlift a lot. And one of Louie's favorite, and I totally agree with this one, is deficit deadlifts. He never even called it that. He goes, stand on a board and start deadlifting. Okay, deficit deadlifts. And then the next week we're on 2 boards. And the next week we're going on 3 boards in rack deadlifts. But, he was he there are a lot of deadlifting ideas that are very basic that makes everybody. But yeah, I think that was an overgeneralization.
Okay,
But
gotcha.
no, didn't really
Yeah, so
happen.
kind of on that same trend then, when you ended up departing from that training group, what did your training look like? Because you were massively successful in these competitions. So did you kind of adhere to similar principles or branch
Yeah.
out and do your own thing?
Um, I like to say that I graduated from Louie Simmons's Westside Garage. He's
I
got
like that.
he's got a very keen eye. I'm telling you, he's got one of the most diagnostic eyes for training. Very good. Thank you for that. Good training principles. But and I also like to say I have more world records after I departed Westside. But I had fundamental knowledge, of course. I'd had world records, and I began to just strictly use technical, scientific strength training principles as opposed to, hey, let's try swinging from the rafters with one dumbbell strapped to your ankle. I thought, I can't do that. I can't be your experiment. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the other reason was I really crafted and groomed my circle of training partners. It was very deliberate, and that couldn't happen down at Louie. So I absolutely deliberately crafted two people ahead of me in weight classes, 181 and 165. And then I moved from 32 to 48. Somebody that was mine, and then two people that were lighter weights. And for obvious reasons, that was an excellent circle. Guys and girls, we had a good combination. So I just crafted people that were scientific thinkers, world record holders, heavy duty lifters, and we just took created a troop and a group and carried on in another side of town here in Columbus. And then that just morphed to more and more places and different, and Dan Dagg's group down at West Side or in Grove City. So yeah, I had to go down the path where, I wrote a dissertation that measured intra-abdominal and intrathoracic pressures during the deadlift. So I'm going to approach lifting from a scientific base.
Oh yeah.
Just hey, here's an idea. No, I'm going to have to read the research first. And I'm fine with trying new things, but not to a dangerous point or not to something where it's not making sense. I'm not going to not deadlift, or I'm not going to do 65 sets of one thing. I can't.
Yeah.
Now I got it. So now I have the foundation. Get it? I'm just going to beat it to death, which I did. Principles, techniques. And then those were the years of honing in on extremely high technique.
Oh yeah.
For example, in the squat, I would not tolerate anything than a perfectly vertical shin in the squat. If my knee tracked anywhere over my toe, not good enough. Nope, it had to go that way. In the bench press, keeping it extremely straight wrist, no bend in the wrist, for a lot of reasons. And those are both debatable topics too. There are a lot of powerlifters and some research that shows, oh yeah, go ahead and shove your knee way over your toe and squat that way. There's fine. I just talked to somebody yesterday about putting some bend in your wrist, some flex in your wrist. So I'm more into those kinds of sophisticated techniques and scientific principles to follow. And then I think they become limitless. Cycling, and one of my favorites is cycling, writing cycles, following cycles, adjusting cycles, measuring cycles, taking experiments with the cycles and the numbers, percentages. It's just limitless. That is limitless. Gosh, that's some of the best parts of training and coaching, is that topic.
Oh, I'm completely in agreement with you there. That's been my area of interest, probably to the highest extent for the past year now. And man, there's so many, permutations of things you can do to try to get a better result. And it's just fascinating. So I'm right with you there. And kind of on the topic that you hit with your own dissertation, of course, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you did quite a bit of work, but do you want to briefly discuss some of the research that you completed during your higher education?
I always wondered how much the weightlifting belt helped in lifting. Do you know? We think it does. It's back to that original thing we were just talking about years ago. People go, yeah, I think it's best if I feel better when I use a wide hand grip in the bench. I can lift more. Well, of course, but that's an original old thought back from the 50s and 60s. Now there's research to substantiate that. But I always wondered, well, we wore a belt, it just feels better. I can lift more. All right, let's figure out what's going on. So that was the question I wanted to answer. And I chose the deadlift to experiment. And I ran a nasogastric, an NG tube up the population's nose, and it traversed from the nose through the nasal passages down the throat. And I had a transducer at the tip of one. It stopped in the middle of the chest near the lungs, and the longer one all the way down embedded in the stomach. So that was how I measured internal pressure. It's called intrathoracic. I know, it's pretty gross. Intrathoracic and intra-abdominal pressure. Then I ran it out to a strip chart recorder and asked my subjects to deadlift with and without a belt. And I'll tell you which percentages and numbers. And then I also slapped an accelerometer on the barbell. Now, once I realized lifters you can't ask them to lift 100% of their max without a belt. That's not going to happen. So the design was, I'm going to ask them to lift 75% of their max, of their 1MR, with a belt and without a belt, and then record each one of them. So I brought half of Louie's garage weights in the lab at Ohio State. They were looking at me in the robotics lab at Ohio State, like, Jesus. I go, and then when I paraded all the lifters coming in, Louie being one, and jamming a NG tube down everybody's nose, it was a bit crazy, but. And of course, the results are what you would think, that lifting with a belt up to 75% of your max in the deadlift, the bar traveled significantly faster, and you increased your internal thoracic and intra-abdominal pressure significantly to the 0.01 level, which proves that you can generate this internal force like a pressure cooker on the stove. Mm-hmm. You can just put strapping, as some people would say, a belt. Strapping around the abdominal forces internal pressure to rise, which thereby you can load bear more, lift quicker, and lift more. Yeah. So I know my subjects didn't have a good time with me shoving that thing down the nose. Several didn't even want to take 75% of their best deadlift without a belt. But,
oh, really?
Well, that's asking a lot. Because 75%, in the population was interesting, because I had anybody from a 148-pound guy to a 300-pound guy. I tested body fat, and I'm telling you, it was broad-based from highest to lowest, fattest to shortest and smallest. It was significant. Then there became a difference between the wide stance and the narrow stance deadlift. Now, which would you think would generate higher internal pressures, the narrow or the wide stance?
I would think a conventional stance.
Yes, you're right. Significantly different than a wide stance. So when you bend forward and fold all up in a narrow stance, your internal pressure is significantly higher than a wide stance.
Yeah.
So then that would transfer. What does that mean in powerlifting? Well, you want to generate top pressure, 440 milligrams. And we're talking a lot of pressure internally. And I think that's why you see in a narrow stance, if you look closely, the narrow stance deadlifters, things move off the floor sooner, and then they may slow down or miss it at the top. And look at the wide stance, there's a delay in that start in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a snappy movement off the ground. They're waiting to build up that internal pressure that's not quite there, that is there with a narrow stance. Already it's baked in early. So, and I never liked the wide stance because you have to be so patient. It's not moving off the floor, and it's not moving. And okay, now it's going to go, and now I can lock it out.
Yeah.
So that's where that research explains things that we kind of always knew. A belt cranks it up, and wide and narrow are different. So that's unpublished as of yet. I did not publish it. I just used it and graduated.
Okay, gotcha. Was there any particular reason why you didn't end up publishing it? Was it like the review process, or? No,
it's published within Ohio State University.
Oh, okay, I see.
But to publish it out on the street as a research project would have taken a rewrite of 300 pages, and
Yeah.
And then at that point, it's like, we'll just redo the experiment. Let's see. Which we could, I would redo that experiment in a heartbeat, write it up as a research paper at this point. But
I see. Okay. That's really cool.
I think you and I should do that. Let's get in a lab and run that test again.
Hey, I mean, I've had other interesting experiences with research. So if you had to put something through my nose, I think I could handle it.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah. I remember also, just briefly, I remember you telling me about like doing muscle biopsies and stuff. That also doesn't sound fun.
Oh, ouch. So as a student, a grad student at Ohio State, you join other people's studies, not just your own. And so I was with I helped with the benchmark exercise and aging study that came out of Ohio State. Very interesting. And of course, it proved you need to exercise until you die. But part of it was the other study I was with, someone else's, was the old generating watts in a seated bike. What's that? The Wingate test, or something like that. So then you had to see how many watts you could generate. Oh my gosh, you had to put a long needle muscle biopsy down the quad. And they don't go straight through it. They don't just snip a bit straight through. They follow the length. Vastus lateralis. So you take a muscle biopsy, which hurts, and then they go, ride, go, do it for this 30, whatever the Wingate is. And then we're going to take another piece of tissue after.
Man.
Ow. Another hilarious one was Eric Miller was figuring out swimming. He wanted to know if you had load bearing or weighted swimming, what's the effect of that? Ew, nobody's signing up for that. That's a drowning waiting to happen. He goes, well, I'll just do it on mice. Let's do it on mice. So you got you get free mice. You just get free mice. There. So he made these mini backpacks, and he wanted to put weights, and then he got a tank, a water tank, and then you just run a wave or a motion so that they have to paddle and pedal and exercise. So he would exercise these mice they would just have to tread water against a wave that was coming. So that was the exercise. So then he was trying to figure out, well, how do I weight these mice down? Well, of course, he absolutely put in too much weight in the little backpack and drowned the first batch. Well, they couldn't keep up. And he's putting like actual weights. And you go, Eric, it'd probably be a grain of rice.
Yeah.
But he'd get him swimming, and then he'd just call me back in a half hour, and he'd come back and they'd be dead. Like, hey, you know what? That's too much weight. So it turned out it would be a couple of grains of rice in the weighted backpack on the mice as they swam for exercise. It's hilarious. He just kept killing off mice.
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
And then the other one is sheep are lazy. Sheep are bad subjects. They don't want to exercise. Okay. I had to help use an electrical prod to keep the stupid sheep walking on the treadmill because they would just stop. Like, no, go, keep walking.
I just couldn't imagine a sheep on a treadmill.
You couldn't. So I forget what was being experimented. Probably walking, exercise, and gradations, increasing the incline, and so on. And they just run. Oh, I know. It was the sheep's heart. It was the sheep's heart that was interesting to study. And then once the exercise protocol in a couple months was over, they would sacrifice the sheep and then examine the heart. Well, they just didn't want to exercise, so this was not going well. We're just standing real still.
That's funny.
I know. So those are my years at the laboratory. Exercise studies, very fun. Fun.
I always just like talking to you, Mariah, because you always have so many funny stories, whether it be from like old lifting stories or like that stories in the lab. Like it's always interesting.
I saved this story because it's hilarious about Louie Simmons. People always go, well, they don't realize Louie lifted. He was a lifter. And there were many, like I told you, on about nine meets. Here's a hilarious story. So rack deadlifts. You put a nasty heavy weight in the rack. Well, that night, Louie's guys group were out of town, nobody could be there, or Louie had to do it on some other night. So Doris, his wife, called me and goes, could a couple of you girls just come down? He's going to try a heavy rack deadlift, and nobody's there. I'm going, that's fine. It's fine. So he used lifting straps like we all do in the rack, just wrist straps and put it on. And so he's working up, and we turned the music on. We're trying to cheer him on, and so he gets to his max lift, and it's easily 800 pounds. He was very strong in the wide. It's easily an 800-pound rack deadlift, and so he's snorting about it. He's getting, oh my God, that stupid wrist rep totally ripped on his max one to the point where he was pulling. It ripped and it shot him up vertically in the air. It was such an effort. He was pissed, and Doris, his wife, goes, "Run!" So he just ran out of the gym because what he did then, pulled every weight plate off and took the barbell vertically and just started shoving holes in the ceiling of his garage. He was so mad, and Doris just goes, "Run, just run away." We all left.
Oh my goodness.
We just left. Yeah,
I wonder what exogenous hormones would have caused that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. So we just had the best time. When it's fun like that, that was not fun for him, but we have stories like that.
Yeah.
Stories like that. Those are my memories of the original Westside. And the other note is, the women at Louie's put him on the map. You got to realize that. He did not have one national champion in the garage. I don't know that he does now. We had 9, including his wife, 9 national and 7 world champion women that Louie coached. And he's not had that kind of a stable with men ever. So yeah, we ran it. We ran the show. You just get a plane and go to nationals, get in a plane and go to the world circuit. Just win. Set world record after world record. Yeah, but people forget that the women, the Westside women, cranked it out, and I can't name many national and 0 world champions that came out of Westside.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if I'm wrong, but could be one. Could be one. Yeah, that's a heck of a thing for Louie to say. He had a stable of ridiculously world record female powerlifters, including his wife Doris. We ran it from Susie was in the 97. There's still a 97-pound weight class in powerlifting.
Wow.
There is. Yeah, 97, 105, all the way to super heavyweight. We just filled every class and just went on a tear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Louie just beaming. Sometimes Louie couldn't get to the meet, like he didn't fly over in Europe to the World Championships and get it. We got this, Louie. We'll be on later.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's a little plug for all the women that put him on the map. Truly.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I hope that in the future that gets documented to a better extent than just like the blurb they did in the documentary.
I think the focus for that movie, Westside versus the World, truly was on the men and Louie and his thoughts and so on. I think that they didn't understand that the women's group just were far more winning than anybody Louie had. It wasn't really the focus they were looking at. I think they weren't featuring lifter by lifter in that movie. It was more
yeah, definitely. After rewatching it, I think I've watched it 3 times now because it's on Netflix. And I actually recorded the snippet of you and sent it to my mom, and I'm pretty sure she watches that every once in a while.
Oh, hilarious. Well, thanks. So it was a real minimal nod to the women, but I don't think that was the focus.
Yeah.
They just wanted to say, and there were some women lifters. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
One thing that I think is like an undertone of that movie is just like the times have changed with the advent of so much technology, and you just see this shot of Louie and he's kind of just sitting there like he doesn't like that, which is understandable because, in his heyday, people weren't recording the lifts all the time, which can be annoying. People weren't isolated in their headphones. It was
right.
A higher sense of community. So with that being said, what are you up to now with the lifting groups you do?
Well, I think a picture is worth 1,000 words. And now that we have the technology to watch an instant replay of your crappy form, let's look at it. And so I use it. Everybody uses that as a coaching tool, or they should. And I think the next step to use it is to have a group view, or you can look at your lift and then do nothing with it. But if you're smart, you're going to have somebody else help you analyze and go, what do you see here? Or let's put it right beside another video of a top-notch lifter. And how do I look better, different? What am I trying to do? But you have the picture's always been worth 1,000 words. And that, I know you say it's high technology, but you have to have pictures, whether it's a still picture or your video. You absolutely have to, and then keep it in your files and use it, call it up later. Yeah. People isolating, wearing headphones, you said, and that's just not fun for the team group. And it's many times not safe. And I think lifters think it's motivating or it's just getting me through the workout. Well, that's all you're doing. Then you're just getting through the workout. Like, then just ride a bike for an hour and watch a movie on TV.
Yeah.
You're missing a lot when you zone out. And you've had this experience before. You may be taking some crazy heavy lift and you've got people surrounding you and you're doing a max out. You hear nothing, I'm sure. You've had that happen, haven't you? You didn't even know the radio was playing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Just like the blur.
Yeah, and so that's a good thing. Just block the world out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Louie is not happy on technology would more lean towards social media and that.
Yeah.
Now, he would never divide the use of a picture. We cherish pictures from the meet. We've analyzed them and picked through them and look at everybody else. But yeah, I think your social media and bragging and showing. The other pet peeve of mine is quit filming your full squat from the front view. What are you looking at? That's one referee's view. You get one white light. Well, I know I got two whites and I know I got two reds and a white. Well, the side judges saw something completely different. So put the camera where a judge would sit.
Yeah.
That's just one of my pet peeves about filming lifts. But I don't know what you're looking at from the front view other than your pretty face, and it's not so pretty, but
Well, I'm not sure of the current situation, but I know in the future, if you are looking for a good group to train with, Mariah is in Lexington Extreme in Grove City, Ohio. And if you're looking for an environment that's going to get you stronger and performing well in powerlifting, you should definitely look up that facility. Is there any other resources you'd like to make people aware of in regard to you and what you do, Mariah?
Partner Dan Degg is one of the new equipment inventors and manufacturers on the scene. He's got an excellent new business where he builds custom and standard monolifts. Mm-hmm. He builds custom and standard bench press, competition bench presses with fat pad, with the safety racks in the bench press. So these are some high-end, heavy-duty powerlifting equipment that Dan Degg should be sourced when he's looking in that direction.
I can attest to the quality as well. And the other side, which I believe you told me a while back that the other side actually had to be consolidated into just right. But you had a similar to like a squat rack rig that you'd see in a lot of gyms, even specifically CrossFit gyms. Mm-hmm. Dan made that rig.
Yeah, Dan welds. Yeah, Dan can make anything of massive magnitude. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was just as quality as something that you'd see from like Rogue. So, right.
So it's Dan Degg's Iron Works.
Mm-hmm. And the versatility of what he can do. Yeah. It's there's like that benefit of going through Dan, because if you have a dream, he can make it happen. Whereas going through something like Rogue.
His powerlifting history is the resource you use when you use it. So Dan's group, the XPC, his powerlifting is part of the Arnold Expo. Mm-hmm. So he's got the backing. That'd be the main person I would recommend today. He's looking for equipment, or to be in the XPC, or to be in the Arnold Expo.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's the only reference I can think of right now.
Okay. Perfect.
I have one thing I wanted to end with.
No, go for it. I can edit
just a little statement. And I know this COVID time is difficult. And I know lifters are finding it difficult if they can't. But I'm telling you, once people are back in the gym, it feels great, and they're back home and can exercise. And we're going to make it. Yeah. These are horrible challenges, today. And, unusual challenges that we have. And I do think that lifting has made us stronger. It just has. You can
Yeah.
tolerate more. I can just tolerate more and tolerate intolerance.
Mm-hmm.
They're really unusual challenges. And I think we need to recognize that was a challenge for me. That's a challenge for you. It's a challenge to go to work. It's a challenge for police officers to go. It's a challenge. And so the closing remark I'll make is a little statement. It's just called, today's challenge is tomorrow's credential. You think about that? You put that right on your resume that you beat that challenge, met that challenge, whatever it is. You can customize it. Today's challenges are horrible, very difficult, and we're making it. And that's tomorrow's credential on your resume. Those are your credentials.
I really like that. That's a powerful, powerful message to end with. So thank you so much, Mariah.
You're welcome. Check in later, David.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you all in the next episode.